I awake in my room. I open my eyes slowly and I wipe the sleep from them. I can faintly hear the TV on in the downstairs living room running for my roommate. It seems to be playing some late night commercial, but I can't entirely make it out. I look over to my bedside table to check the clock. Damn. 2:03 a.m. again. Why does this keep happening? For the past few weeks, I have been waking up consistently at the same time for no apparent reason. I've always been a relatively sound sleeper, but these recent awakenings had me on edge and exhausted. This lack of sleep has caused me to slip behind at work, and my bosses have been noticing lately. I have been falling behind on projects and my social life has taken a hit as well. I have no motivation to go above and beyond my normal deadlines, because I'm just so tired all the time. I roll back onto my side and I try to block out the numerous thoughts running through my mind. Once I wake up, my mind always starts to run wild with the most unimportant and pointless thoughts. I play out scenarios in my head that will never happen, and I leave myself restless and irritated. I glance at the clock once over and I see that nearly 30 minutes have passed. How have I been awake for this long? I have to be up for work in at least 4 hours. Not again. I try to clear my mind once more and relax myself. In the past, deep breathing exercises have always helped me calm down and fall back asleep, but it's never certain. After what seems like an eternity of steady breathing, I slowly drift off back to sleep for my few remaining hours. The next day at work, I'm sluggish and simply out of it. After being badgered by my superiors about project deadlines and quotas, I just can't wait to get home. My day-to-day life at this point has become so mundane and repetitious that I seem to lose track of what day it is. Nothing ever excites me anymore, and with the recent lack of sleep, it's only made things more difficult. My bed and sleeping have always been my safe haven, just to unwind and forget about everything. But now, I don't feel welcome anywhere. Again, I awake out of a dead sleep. I was so desperately in need of a good night's sleep so much that I turned to sleeping aids to assist me, but even that didn't work. I knew in my head what time it was, but I still glanced over at the clock. 2:03 a.m. I brushed everything off and I used my deep breathing tactic to push any other thoughts away. As I lay there, I felt the pressure coming from my bladder, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to fall back asleep without relieving myself. I slid out of my bed and I felt the coldness of the hardwood floor beneath my feet. It creaked, showing the signs of an old, beaten-down apartment. I opened my door with a steady whine and made my way down the hallway to the bathroom. I could see light emanating from the downstairs living room, where again the TV could be heard playing late-night infomercials faintly. It sounded like it was either a commercial for Jack LaLanne's Power Juicer or some kind of shoddy call-in line. The tone of the television was distorted for some reason, switching between high and low pitches every few sentences. Chalking it up to a lack of sleep, I continued towards the bathroom and I put it out of my mind. After doing the deed, I made my way back towards my bedroom and I quietly shut my door. I slid back into bed and I pulled the blankets up over me. As I lay there, trying to force myself back to sleep, a thought comes to mind. Why was my roommate up late watching television? He usually goes to bed before I do, and he barely watches television as is. In his free time, I always see him curled up with a good book versus watching Netflix or sports. With this thought blooming into realization, I feel a chill come over my body. I am now wide awake and I don't find myself dozing off to sleep without getting to the bottom of this. Once again, I slowly slide out from my bed, being highly aware of all the noises around me. I press my ear up against my closed bedroom door, to still hear the same onslaught of crappy infomercials playing on a loop from the downstairs TV. I hesitate here for what seems like minutes, before carefully and cautiously turning the handle of my door and pulling it open. Unlike the previous time, the door opens in a quiet and smooth swinging motion before coming to a stop. I breathe a sigh of relief and I listen to the now slightly more amplified audio emanating from downstairs. To lay out my apartment a little bit, it has an open concept with a balcony hanging over the lower floor of the building. A wall slightly protrudes the living room from view at the balcony, so you need to make your way about halfway down the staircase to get a clear view of where the television is located. I'll doodle something up later if I get the chance to. From my vantage point on top of the stairs, I can see the faint light glowing on the walls of the apartment. The audio coming from the television still sounded incredibly distorted as before, leaving the late night call-in line sounding much less appealing and more eerie. I move my foot from the top landing and I place it on the first step of the staircase. A slight groan emanates from the pressure and I pause before continuing. The silence of the house, minus the television's muted and distorted audio, seems undisturbed, so I continue with a peaked awareness of my surroundings. I slowly reach the middle point of the staircase, and I peer into the darkened area of which was the living room. The light coming from the television casts a faint glow over the furniture sitting undisturbed. From my view, the room is completely empty. Feeling a little more relaxed and almost laughing at myself for freaking myself out, I continue down the stairs without the notion of quietness from before, and I head to turn off the television. My roommate must have stayed up a little bit later than I did and had forgotten to turn things off. Confirming that thought with the bags of empty potato chips laying haphazardly in the armchair, positioned right in front of the TV. My roommate had always been somewhat of a slob, and picking up after him can grow a little tedious at times, but for the most part he's not a bad guy. Refocusing on the task at hand, I flip off the television and head back to bed, already dreading the early morning that will soon be coming. As I lay in bed, on the cusp of drifting off into my dreams, I swear I can hear subtle movements coming from downstairs. The next day at work is much of the same. Getting yelled at by my bosses, being avoided by coworkers, and simply struggling to get through the day. Before these nighttime awakenings, I was a decently well-liked guy at my job. I would take part in the regular sports banter that all the guys in the office would constantly talk about, and I enjoyed the company of my coworkers. But now I just seemed to be invisible. On my lunch break, I made my way into the bathroom and I was stunned by how I looked in the mirror. It was obvious that something wasn't right with me. I had huge black bags drooping underneath my eyes, and my hair seemed greasier than normal. I looked pale and deeply in need of a good night's sleep. Unfortunately, that would not be coming. Repeating the events of the past few nights in my head as I lay in bed, questioning if everything that had happened was simply caused by my overactive imagination. I knew that I would wake up that night, and maybe I had convinced myself so much that that was the reason for my consistent sleeping problems. As expected, I awoke to a similar scene as previous nights. My room was nearly pitch black and dead silent. I sat up and I listened for any possible noises coming from the apartment. Besides the regular old house noises that could be heard, the house was completely still. I exhaled in relief that the television downstairs was not on. My roommate must have gotten the message after seeing me clean up after him the previous night. I closed my eyes at this thought and I felt somewhat content. But then, as I thought I had imagined the prior night, I heard the movements from downstairs again. My ears perked up and I listened carefully from my bed. They moved slowly and deliberately from the kitchen to the living room. It sounded as if something was being dragged, and it eventually ended with an audible thud. The TV then clicked on, blaring those familiar infomercials. Fully awake and alert, I jump out of bed and I head downstairs to yell at my roommate for making so much noise in the middle of the night. I open my door, fully announcing my presence, not trying to keep quiet this time. I make my way down the staircase and I pause to look over the railing. There I see my roommate sitting in the armchair, watching those stupid infomercials. Without hesitation, I continue downstairs and across the room, before putting my hand on his shoulder from behind. He doesn't react though. He just stays still, eyes glued to the television screen. This irritated me. Hey man, stop making so much damn noise. Some of us are trying to My voice cut off at another noise coming from beside me. I paused. A shiver went up my spine as I turned to slowly face what was lurking, partially illuminated from the glow of the TV screen. From what I could see, its face was disfigured. It had no eyes where the sockets were. Its mouth was filled with yellowish brown teeth that reeked with the smell of rotten meat. It had a few black stringy hairs that partially covered its face. It stood around 7 feet tall and it towered over me. Its voice spoke in that same distorted tone that I had first heard from the TV many nights ago. Why wouldn't you come and play with me? I tried to wake you up, but you would never come and play. Your roommate was much nicer than you were. And look how much fun we had. At this moment, I glanced over at what was left of my roommate, lying limply in the armchair. He resembled the creature standing before me in shocking similarity. His eyes were ripped out, leaving only the stringy flesh dangling from its sockets. His mouth had been cut into a wide happy grin and his teeth were all but missing. The creature spoke once more. Now that you've finally come to play, we can have fun. Your friend was such a good sport. I can't wait to see how you are. I could smell the wretched fumes emanating from the creature's mouth. I held back my vomit as I did the only thing I could think to do in that moment. Run. I sprinted back up the stairs and I slammed my door shut, locking it. I pulled my dresser and anything else I could find in front of the door. Anything to slow down that abomination. I sat there in silence, initially surprised that the creature didn't give chase when I first fled. And then I heard it. The slow, deliberate footsteps. One by one, they made their way across the living room and up the staircase. One by one, the stairs creaked with anticipation as to what my fate would be. I can hear his sickly cry as he taunts me, asking me to come play. It seems that he can't enter on his own accord, but that I have to give in to his temptations and allow him access. As I write this now, I can hear him slowly scratching at my bedroom door, pleading for me to come out and play. It'll be a grand time. Just come play. Your friend misses you.
We all miss you.
I don't know how much longer I can hold out. I've grown hungry and his pleas have only gotten louder, deafening. The more and more he begs, the more inviting it sounds. I have lost track of time. My clock simply stays stuck at 2:03 a.m. I've grown tired, but his constant torment won't allow me to rest. I think I'm just going to go play with him. He doesn't sound too bad after all. I'll do anything just to go back to sleep.